Hi, my name is Dr. Stephen Quay, and today I'm going to talk about the coronavirus pandemic and its origin, where I present evidence that it began at the People's Liberation Army Hospital in Wuhan, China, and that it spread to the world on line 2 of the Wuhan metro system. As you know, at 10 months after the beginning of this pandemic, we still don't know where it began. The zoonotic out of nature theory is that it began at the Hunan seafood factory, while those who believe it began in a laboratory focus on the Wuhan Institute of Virology or the Wuhan CDC. But in either case, we don't know where it began. Let's contrast that with SARS 2003 and MERS 2015. Within 4 months, we knew that SARS was from the civet cat in wet markets, and within 9 months, we knew that MERS was caused by transmission from camels. So again, with respect to SARS-CoV-2, we are very much behind our previous efforts. About 2 months ago, I began to look at this process and to use the GSAD database out of Germany, which has over 150,000 sequences, to try to look at the earliest sequences and see if I could identify where this process began. To my surprise, 4 of the very earliest patients that formed a cluster were from the General Hospital of the Central Theater Command of the People's Liberation Army of China. This hospital is located, as shown here on the right, in Wuhan, approximately 3 kilometers from the Wuhan Institute of Virology. In addition to being unusual that the earliest 4-patient cluster was from the PLA hospital, the processing of the specimens was quite unusual. The typical processing is to collect a sample from a patient, to sequence that patient, and then to upload the sequence to the European Nucleotide Archive approximately 60 days later. In 15 examples that I studied, this was the pattern, a 60-day processing. The only example I could find was the 4 patients from the PLA hospital where the patient files were set up on December 10th, 16 to 26 days before the specimens were collected, and then the specimens were sequenced. This pattern either implies that they knew specimens were coming in a vaccine challenge trial, perhaps, or that the collection dates were wrong and they actually collected them in November. This is the location of the PLA hospital from Google Maps and shows that the Butong Temple Station, about 100 meters away on line 2, is a very close station. This hospital is part of a 7-building complex of the Joint Logistics Support Force established in 2016 by the PLA Army. In looking at the sequences of the 4 patients at the PLA hospital, shown here in red, PLA 4, 3, 2, and 1, the first observation is that their sequences are nearly identical or very close, much as we would see in a family cluster, and clearly suggesting patient-to-patient transfer. In addition, the PLA4 patient is closest to RATG13 and the other 2 bat coronaviruses, which the virology community has identified as the closest ancestors to the human virus. So as you can see in these 6 nucleotide positions, PLA4 is identical to RATG and is in fact closer than the current reference specimen. Turning now again to the geolocation, this is a map of the Wuhan metro system showing the Wuhan Institute of Virology and the PLA hospital along this pink line denoting line 2 ending at the international airport. My methodology was to take all 40 hospitals in Wuhan to create a circular catchment zone and to identify the closest station and the line associated with that hospital, and then the closest residential area and overlay those to determine which hospitals saw the earliest patients. To my surprise, all COVID patients from December 1 to early January were admitted to hospitals on the Metro Line 2. The probability that this was by chance is 1 in 68,500. But in fact, when you look at the features of Line 2, you see that in fact, it is the perfect COVID conduit. 1 million passengers a day travel on line 2, meaning 5% of the Wuhan population is on line 2. The line crosses every other line, allowing spread throughout Wuhan. And finally, line 2 contains the high-speed rail station for spread around China and the international airport station for spread throughout the world. In conclusion, the coronavirus pandemic began at the People's Liberation Army Hospital in Wuhan, China, and spread to the world on line 2 of the Wuhan metro system. Thank you.